What's good, Yugioh teams? Remember, let's go back into this video. This on screen is one of my most hated cards ever, and you guys have known I've hated this card literally before it was widely played in the current format. It seems like this is the go-to going first side in Floodgate that every deck is playing, from Snake Eyes to Voiceless Voice. Everyone is taking advantage of Summon Limit, which prevents your opponent from summoning twice per turn, or more than twice rather. Now, I want to talk about some key ways to actually beat this card, because you do not want to end in the situation where you get caught by surprise, off guard by this card, and you literally have no outs and you just lose the duel. So, without further ado, let's dive in. Starting at the top, how do you beat Summon Limit? Well, it's a floodgate, so cards like Cosmic Cyclone are really crucial to actually chain to Summon Limit. And the nice thing about Cosmic Cyclone is, as you guys already know, it's highly effective against the Fire King Island, especially when they do have a board up, like Appaloosa, because you just deal with everything. Fire King Island has a mandatory trigger effect that nukes their entire board when it gets banished or sent to the graveyard, and you know, having Cosmic Cyclone to take care of the job is amazing, on top of being able to hit the Summon Limit. Now, you do have to juggle whether or not to hold the Cosmic Cyclone when your opponent has like Fire King Island plus a face down. Generally, it depends on your hand, but I might be inclined to hold it just to take care of the Summon Limit, because that's a real high impact card that stops you from playing. But I think Cosmic Cyclone is definitely a great card in the current format. It deals with a lot of rogue decks too. You're talking about like shifter decks, even decks like Floander Rees, you know, they have the field spell. Potentially they have like the Dreaming Town that you can snipe during the standby phase, because this can only be used during the main phase. Against Kashtira, you can even hit something like a Kashtira Burst, so it's not the end of the world. And I just love this card so much. Honestly, I would love to side this. You can hit Voiceless stuff as well on top of that, the Voiceless Resurgence, or Radiance rather. So, Cosmic Cyclone is probably my card of choice right now to deal with Summon Limit and all of the other problems in the metagame. You just have to find a way to fit this in. If you're playing Snake Eyes Fire King, you probably have to play over 40 cards, so you have an easier chance of siding. The deck is very hard to side. You just have to shape Engine, unfortunately, and playing a higher deck count does contribute to that. But Cosmic Cyclone is my #1 choice. Now, moving on is another tech card that we kind of talked about, or rather me and my team played for the YCS 3v3 Vegas, Typhoon. We sided 3 this card, and it was absolutely amazing. Now, I know a lot of the other people are saying, hey, this card is trash, it doesn't do a lot, but honestly, guys, I cannot tell you that this card was absolutely amazing. It was good in the mirror match, and it was also crazy good in the actual rogue matchups. Like, we played against Purely, and we were able to snipe my friend Purely during their turn. This card says, target one face-up spell or trap on the field, destroy it. If your opponent controls 2 or more spells or traps and you control none, you can activate this card from your hand. So it becomes an MST the minute your opponent controls 2 or more face-up spells or traps, meaning it can hit things like Summon Limit, because generally they're going to have Summon Limit alongside something like a Fire King Island or the Snake Eye Temple, right? So having the 2 face-up cards is very easily achievable for both Snake Eyes and Fire King, and being able to have an additional card in addition to Cosmic Cyclone that takes care of Summon Limit and whatever else they have makes it really nice. Now, the other key thing that you have to know is that you can snipe a Fire King Island. Again, when you combine Typhoon with other hand traps, generally if you stop your opponent already, they have to use Snake Eye Ash to actually send off the Fire King Sanctuary in order to go off into the Flamberg. So when they do that, the Fire King Island is just naked on the board, so you can literally just nuke it off with the Typhoon from your hand at the end of the combo, just before they make the Ambler Whale, because Ambler Whale does allow them to get another fire on the board, but generally they've already used all of their fire effects like Runix and also Kirin Arvada, so it means that they're not going to be able to resurrect any fire monsters, and unless they literally have Kirin plus another fire monster in their hand, it means that the entire graveyard is going to be dead come on our turn. And guys, I'm going to tell you right now, as a Fire King player, it's not a high chance to actually have the Kirin with another fire monster. You do not guarantee this all the time, especially if you're playing safe and you're going for the Appaloosa line, where you're not actually able to add the Kirin off of the Sunlight Wolf, and you just have to bank on having the Kirin already hard drawn plus another fire monster. So Typhoon has been really amazing for me personally at YCS Vegas, and I think this card having the additional utility to deal with Summon Limit. By the way, guys, we used it on a lot of Summon Limits throughout the tournament. Let me tell you, I think this card is actually very good to consider siding against. It's also very good against the rogue decks out there. You have like the Voiceless Voice stuff as well. And the reason why Typhoon is actually better than Cosmic Cyclone against pure Snake Eye is that they do actually have the Flamberg Dragon with the IP Masquerena generally in their scale zone alongside the Snake Eye Temple on the field. And they're not actually going to shotgun the Flamberg effect to bring back the IP Masquerena. Rather, they're going to wait until you commit a monster to the board. Then they're going to activate Divine Temple. And if you have something like a Cosmic Cyclone in your chain, target the IP Masquerena, Masquerena, then they can just chain the effect of the Flamberg to target that Masquerena, and because it becomes a monster, your Cosmic Cyclone effectively fizzles. So that's why Typhoon is a lot better than Cosmic Cyclone against Pure, because you can actually use the Typhoon directly on the IP Masquerena during their end phase, which means that there's a guaranteed 0% chance that they're actually going to be able to get the IP Masquerena back on the board, right? Even though it's not like ideal, yes, they are going to be able to resurrect something else with the Flamberg Dragon, potentially your own Poplar to disrupt you, but that's a lot better than having IP Masquerena go into something like an SP Little Knight where they have 2 interruptions, one off the banish and then one off the field banish, and then they're also getting all their bodies back from the graveyard off of Flamberg, and it's just infinite resources where you literally have to OTK them or lose. So that's my long-winded explanation of why I think Typhoon is still very, very crispy and good against Summon Limit. Moving on, other cards. DINOWRESTLER PANKRATOPS. This card I actually think is decently good. I know a lot of good players were citing it for YCS Vegas, even for the Pirate King or the Snake Eyes matchup. Now, my one gripe with this card, the only thing that I'm kind of hesitant is the fact that he's a monster effect, which means when they have Appaloosa on the board, DINOWRESTLER PANKRATOPS is not going to do a lot. Yes, you can threaten to go to the battle phase, but generally they have ways of clearing, whether that's with IP Masquerena plus the SP. I know it's still a 2-for-1, but I just don't like the idea of them having the Appaloosa being able to negate my PANKRATOPS when I'm staring down a face-down card like Summon Limit, and I'm just not guaranteed to get rid of the problem, right? So that's the only thing I'm kind of apprehensive about, but DINOWRESTLER PANKRATOPS is amazing against rogue decks. It deals with all of the rogue deck problems, like all of the continuous floodgates, all of the spell cards, the field spells, Floowandereeze, you know, Kashtira, whatever the heck is out there. Even anti-spell fragrance it deals with as well. So this is the type of card that's just always good. The fact that it has a body, it can deal with cards like Fenrir as well. It puts a lot of pressure on your opponent's side of the field, and then you can use it as quick effect removal during your opponent's turn. The only thing, again, is the Appaloosa interaction that makes me really apprehensive. But if you combine PANKRATOPS with other hand traps and you prevent them from getting Appaloosa, then I can definitely see this card being good. But I just don't like the chance of me actually not being able to resolve it to snipe a back row or Summon Limit when they do have Appaloosa. That's the only thing. But I think if the metagame ramps out a little bit, this could definitely be a card you guys can consider.
Really quickly, if you guys aren't already subscribed to the channel, definitely consider hitting that subscribe button at the bottom. It'll go a long way to support the channel. Other than that, thanks a lot for tuning in.
Moving on are some other board wipes. Lightning Storm is actually a really positive card that I think is being underwhelmed in the current metagame. This deals with a lot of things. You can bait out attack position negation because a lot of players are still putting like their Omni negates like Baron de Fleur and Savage in attack mode, so it's just a 1-for-1 trade. You can clear the back row, obviously getting rid of Summon Limit, potentially getting rid of a Fire King Island along the way if they already sacked the Sanctuary or if they're not playing it, period. And then on top of that, you could also bait out other things like an Appaloosa if it was not made by an IP Masquerena, so it's not protected by card effect destruction. And then, you know, just dealing with rogue decks. This deals with a lot of stuff. Against Voiceless Voice, you clear like both the barrier and the radiance. So there's just so many niche interactions for this card that I think it's so underwhelmed right now. And I definitely think I want to side this card for the next upcoming metagame after Legacy of Destruction too, because there are new decks coming out that also play back row stuff. And I think this is the type of card that the fact that it deals with monsters makes it a little bit better than Harpy's Feather Duster, because you're always using it effectively as the same card slot, right? You're clearing spells and traps, but it also has the additional interaction to bait out an Omni Negate or to clear an entire monster board. So personally, I think Lightning Storm is actually a very powerful card that could be considered for your side deck right now. Then let's talk about the next one, CROSSOUT Designator. So if you're technically siding Summon Limit and you don't have space to side in removal, then you could put in one copy of Summon Limit just to have the CROSSOUT. But I think this is really volatile because Summon Limit's not the only thing you're going to have to deal with. Your opponent's going to have like hand traps like Ash Blossom and, you know, Veiler, Imperm, whatever the heck else. And if you're not able to actually kill your opponent or put up a board using CROSSOUT Designator through their hand traps and whatever Omni Negates that they have or the interaction that they have, then you're kind of wasting a CROSSOUT Designator because the Summon Limit just chills on the field and it's still going to haunt you on the next turn. So that's why I don't really like CROSSOUT Designator calling Summon Limit. I would rather just side in a clean answer like Cosmic Cyclone or Typhoon, Lightning Storm, all that stuff. But if you absolutely have no other way to deal with it, this is something you could definitely consider. But I don't like it. And you're also not guaranteed to even see a Summon Limit if you side and cross out with Summon Limit, because some players are still playing Anti-Spell Fragrance, or some players are just not playing Go First trap cards, period. Like, personally, I just did not side any Summon Limits going first because I just didn't like the card. I felt like I was stopped all the time and it didn't really do enough. But it's kind of like a gamble with CROSSOUT Designator, so that's why I don't really like this card. Last but not least, I think if you guys play a lot of hand traps, you could definitely use that to just hedge against your opponent, stop them, and then hopefully lock them out of the summon limit. But the issue with that is they have a lot of ways to actually send off the summon limit. Obviously, with Snake Eye Ash or Snake Eye Oak, they could just send it to summon something from deck. Also, Diabell Star just sends it for cost as well. So I'm not really that favorable to, say, not side in any cards against the summon limit. I would definitely consider siding in Cosmic Cyclone and Typhoons, but you know, hand traps do kind of hurt the summon limit users sometimes if used correctly and if their hand is just not that good. So yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on this so far? Do you have any other ways that I'm missing to deal with summon limit? Let us know in the comments below, because this is the type of card that's going to plague the format, I think, for the next foreseeable future until Konami decides to restrict it or until somehow it fades out of the format. But as the power creep grows and grows and decks are doing more and more summoning, this card just gets more and more powerful. So yeah, I hope it does get banned. But guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.